Hi there. Real quick before we jump into the episode. If you enjoy this episode, or any of the other episodes, be sure to give us a follow or subscribe. It would also be great if you shared it with a friend, or better yet, left a review so others can know how awesome it is. Thanks so much. And now, the episode.
Hey there, Press Starters, and welcome to the Press Start Leadership Podcast, the podcast about game-changing leadership, teaching you how to get the most out of your product and development team and become the leader you were meant to be. Leadership coaching and training for the international game industry professional. Now, let me introduce you to your host, the man, the myth, the legend, Christopher Mifsud.
Hey there, Press Starters, and welcome back to another awesome edition of the Press Start Leadership Podcast. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing Game On, the ultimate guide to asset naming conventions in video game development. Best practices for organizing and streamlining your workflow with consistent and descriptive asset names. Asset naming conventions are a crucial part of any video game development process. Consistent and organized naming convention can help streamline the workflow and make it easier for the team to find and identify assets. In this podcast, we will discuss some of the best practices for asset naming conventions in the video game industry. Up first, consistency. The first and most important aspect of asset naming conventions is consistency. All members of the team, including artists, programmers, and designers, must adhere to the same naming convention throughout the entire project. This will prevent confusion and ensure that everyone can quickly identify the assets they need. Up next, clarity and descriptiveness. The second aspect of asset naming conventions is clarity and descriptiveness. Asset names should be simple, clear, and descriptive, so that anyone looking at them can quickly understand what the asset is and what it does. The name should accurately describe the asset and its purpose. Avoid using vague or generic names that can cause confusion or misinterpretation. Third up, use prefixes and suffixes. Using prefixes and suffixes is a great way to organize assets into categories and groups. This can make it easier for team members to find the assets they need. For example, you could use CHAR_ as a prefix for character assets, ENV_ for environment assets, and UI_ for user interface assets. This naming convention will make it easier to identify what type of assets you are looking for. Number 4, use abbreviations. Using abbreviations can save time and reduce the length of asset names. However, it is essential to ensure the abbreviations are well known and understood by all team members. Some commonly used abbreviations in the video game industry include TEX_ for texture assets, ANIM_ for animation assets, and SND_ for sound assets. When using abbreviations, make sure they are consistent throughout the project. See number 1. 5. Use numbers. Using numbers is an excellent way to differentiate between similar assets. For example, use tree_01 for the first tree asset and tree_02 for the second tree asset, and so on. This is particularly useful when creating variations of the same asset, such as different levels of detail or color variations. Up next, use underscores. Underscores are used to separate words in asset names, making them easier to read and understand. For example, use rock_large instead of rock large to make it easier to read. Using underscores also helps prevent any potential issues with spaces and file names. Avoid spaces. Spaces can cause issues with some software when creating file names, so it is best to avoid them. Instead, use underscores, as I just said, to separate words in asset names. This will ensure that the asset names are compatible with all software used in the development process. Use lowercase. Using lowercase for all asset names will prevent any potential issues with case sensitivity. This is particularly important when working on different platforms, as some platforms may be case sensitive. Be specific. Asset names should be as specific as possible, particularly when creating multiple variations of the same asset. For example, use sword_long instead of sword to differentiate it from other swords in the game. This will make it easier for team members to find the asset they need. Keep it short. Finally, it is important to keep asset names as short as possible without sacrificing clarity. Shorter names are easier to read and remember, and they take up less space in file directories. Aim for names that are no longer than 20 to 30 characters, while still accurately describing the asset. My final thoughts. Asset naming conventions are a crucial aspect of video game development that can help streamline the workflow and make it easier for team members to find and identify assets. Consistency, clarity, and organization are key when creating asset names. Using prefixes, suffixes, abbreviations, numbers, and underscores can all help create a naming convention that is easy to understand and use. Keeping asset names short and specific is also important, as it can help prevent confusion and make it easier to find what you need. By following these best practices, you can create a naming convention that will help you stay organized and efficient throughout the entire game development process. Alright, that's this week's episode of Press Start Leadership Podcast. As always, thanks for listening, and most of all, thanks for being awesome. Oh, hi there. The episode's over, but thanks for sticking around till the end. If you're on the quest to elevate your team's leadership, production, or game design capabilities, I'm here to assist. Leveraging extensive experience and a strategic approach, I offer personalized audits, bespoke workshops, and leadership retreat facilitation to drive your team toward excellence. My commitment is to provide efficient, reliable, and proven support, ensuring you have the tools and insights needed to thrive. Ready to unlock your team's full potential and achieve unparalleled success? Don't hesitate to press start on your journey to transformation today. Feel free to reach out directly to discuss how we can tailor a solution to meet your unique needs and goals. Let's connect and take your team's performance to the next level.